Hello, I figured it was finally time to make an editing video, and I just wanted to let all of you know I am using Lightroom 5, and here is our lovely model, Summer Camp, and she graciously let me use one of her photos, so I hope all of you can, I guess, learn something, or maybe find something that you like about this, but if not, that's cool too, but enjoy! Hello, we are finally going to edit a photograph. How exciting. I know I've done crazy speed edits, but here's our lovely model Summer Camp. And what I'm going to do to begin with is go into the Develop module in Lightroom 5 and go all the way down to Lens Correction. And what I'm going to do is click on Enable Profile Correction because sometimes a lens has a rounded spherical element in the front which kind of distorts the image, and that will flatten it out. And what I do next is, this is my favorite thing in the entire world, it's pretty much sharpening the sections of the photograph that you tell it to. So what I'm doing is you hold down your Alt key, scroll over on the masking while holding down the Alt key, and that shows you what you are sharpening. So the white is what, the, I guess, sketchy look is what you're sharpening. So what I love to sharpen is mainly the eyes. And after this, pretty much all I'm going to do is focus on the eyes for ever, because honestly, I love working on the eyes. I guess that's my thing. So what I'm using right now is this brush I made called Lighter Eyes, and this adjustment brush is pretty much over the top because honestly, I love to use things that are over the top because when they're over the top, you can see them taking effect. Then you can just tone them down to your liking. And pretty much what I love to do is I love to bring out the highlights and the colors, but this photograph is going to be a black and white photo. So keep this in mind and you'll understand why the photo is slightly burned. And if you're not sure of what burning is, like what I'm doing around the eyes, I'm not necessarily burning right now. I'm using another adjustment brush called the Clarity brush. And this gives me a very, very defined look. And it even replicates, I guess it's called mascara, if you will. If you will. Oh my goodness. What I'm doing now is I am actually burning, and if you're not familiar with what burning is, it's when you darken certain areas of the photograph, and mainly for, I guess, fashion photography or portraiture, you're going to use the burn tool to burn in more shadows or give more definition, or even create definition that was not there before. Give those people those cheekbones, you know what I mean. And after this, what I'm going to do is use the dodge tool, which is the opposite of the burn tool. You're going to enhance the highlights, and I tend to work in the T-zone, mainly when I'm editing just the face, but do keep in mind not to edit just the face. And I feel like I should have taken my own advice when editing this photo because I did not dodge the rest of her, because, and it's very simple, because the rest of her body is already in enough light. And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you should have edited the whole thing. Oh, goodness me, excuse me. And do keep in mind, if you don't dodge the whole body though, I'm sorry, if you don't burn the whole body in the areas that I'm doing, then the image itself is going to look slightly flat. And do keep in mind, this is all my own opinion. And now you can see that I am, in fact, dodging, because let's be real here. If it's just burning, the image itself is going to look slightly strange. But we all have our preferences. That is just my own. If I dodge, I burn. If I burn, I dodge. Ta-da! So what I'm doing next is using the healing brush tool, and pretty much what I do mainly with the healing brush tool is remove things that aren't going to be on your face in 2 weeks, or fallout if there is any, well, fallout, the makeup fallout, if it just kind of starts to crumble a little bit. And what I'm doing now is using the Skin Smooth brush. This is a brush from, I believe, VSCO, Visual Supply Company. And what I'm currently doing is the red is showing me where I am applying the skin smoothing brush, because honestly, I'm a very, very sloppy colorer, and that has not changed. It might be because I have crazy big hands or some other crazy factor that I might need to speak to someone about. But what I love about the ability to show where you're applying this brush is that if you are like me and you go outside of the lines, you can just erase it, because honestly, what is an editing program if you can't fix your mistakes? Oh goodness, high expectations, friends. So I'm pretty much just going to keep smoothing it out, and I'm mainly just going to focus on the little areas. Alright, now we are going to the HSL area. This stands for Hue, Saturation, and Luminance. And since I didn't decide while I was editing that this was going to be a black and white photograph, so what I'm doing right now is evening out the skin tone, because honestly, for a color photograph, if the skin tone is not even, then Lord, I'd have a panic attack, and I'd just... that sound right there. So pretty much what the hue does is what I use the hue for mainly is, like I said, to match the tones properly, and then if some part of the skin is a bit too much, I tone it down, and if something is too dark, I use the luminance, and this also creates softness. Now, here we are. I finally decided black and white. Voila, magic. And honestly, I decided for this photograph in particular that I would not utilize the presets that I've created. I'm sure if you look, you'll see some that I haven't created, but the majority of the things that I utilize are things that I've made. So please keep this in mind. So what I'm doing next is I decided to finally go into the black and white. So what this does is it gives you more control over the tones of the skin as well, or pretty much all of the black and white aspects of your photograph. Sorry for the awkward pause there. So pretty much what I'm doing is I love for the blacks in a photograph to be as black as possible, and I like the whites to be a bit more muted, and honestly that's just a personal preference. So when you're doing a black and white photograph, if you decide for it to be a certain way, I think it's a good idea to decide before you go and just do it. But do keep in mind to edit your photo in color first. That way, if you decide, oh, when I convert it to black and white, I don't really like it. So I feel like that's an option you should always give yourself, and always go before. Like, you have the option to look at your photo before and after while you're editing it. And I don't want to sound too pretentious, but I've gotten to the point now where I know what I want and I just go for it and I do it and I got it. So what I'm doing here is, in a black and white photo, mainly for women, if they're wearing makeup, I love to emphasize the dark on the lips. And like I said, for the eyes, I like them to be over the top. That way I can tone it down to get a more polished look. And I know it sounds so strange. I told you this, I'm a backwards editor. Or maybe I didn't. I'm not sure. But I'm telling you now. So there is that. But you'll see, it will all come together and it will be wonderful. At least for me, anyway. Alright, now that I've decided the photo's in black and white, time to go to my favorite part of the entire editing process for black and white. Go down to camera calibration and you can change the camera profile. And these are all camera profiles that I have accumulated over my years of editing. So pretty much what this does is you can mess with the tint, the red primary, the green primary, and the blue primary. And pretty much what this does for me is it, like I said previously, I like the blacks to be so black, it's ridiculous, and I like the whites to be muted. So this gives me more control over that aspect of the photo. Alright, here we go again. This is a very important part, and I'm going to emphasize this a lot for a lot of people. When you decide to crop your photo, which, and I'm sorry, you should do it right at the beginning of your editing process, you need to make sure that you are lining up your lines. I mean, unless you're trying to be crazy creative, which, believe me, I have taken that liberty and I have been crazy creative. But for a photograph like this, I want it to be balanced and I want it to have a levelness to it. So there's that. Oh, but what you can see here is that I made a mistake. So you can see some sort of fringing happening around the hair, and it's kind of distracting, and I hate it, and it's killing me inside. So what I did is I went back up to the black and white module, which is where the HSL is, and you have sort of a little ink dropper tool And I clicked on that and I dragged it over to where the hair was, and I saw what color it was, and I just recalibrated, or I just adjusted ever so slightly. But anyway, back to the cropping aspect, make sure you get that right, because Lord knows that drives him crazy. So I do know that a lot of people are a bit conscious of the bags under their eyes, and honestly, I am, and I pretty much just use another smoothing tool under the eyes, and as you can tell, it's very, very, very over the top. But do keep in mind, I am not done editing yet, so there's that. So I just smooth out some more little details. Okay, since the smoothness is a bit over the top, what I do to sort of retain the detail, since I'm not in Photoshop, I just go down to the effects section and I up the grain to a believable amount so that the blurred areas are not as noticeable and it sort of blends in a bit better. Like any artsy person, I am never happy with anything. So I decided to recrop it, change my focal point. She's clearly going to be my focal point since she is the subject, but honestly, I didn't think the brick wall was serving enough for me, so brought in the lamppost a little more. And see, I feel like it gave it a bit more of a nice appeal, and a tighter crop brought more attention to her. So this is my own personal preference again, but yeah, make sure you play around with it. Don't get too crazy though. The tool I'm using right now is the, goodness me, I completely forget what that tool is called, so I'm so sorry. But pretty much what this does is it allows you to either apply an effect outside of the circle that you've just placed, and what I tend to do is I like to add a bit of darkness around it, because honestly I'm all about darker photos. So what I'm doing right now is messing with the blacks, the whites, the shadows, and the highlights, and pretty much, I'll say it again, I love the blacks to be crazy black, because it makes the photo say something for me. And that little color dropper you just saw, or that little, I think, water dropper thing, or whatever it is, that helped me choose a custom white balance. And since it's in black and white, you have multiple areas of just straight up plain gray. And I am not too finicky nor too picky, so I just simply choose a random area. And I'm all about the vignetting. I can't deny it. I'm crazy about vignetting. So I believe that is in the, where is that? The profile corrections again? But yeah, I just toned that down like crazy. And that's pretty much my editing process, at least for something like this. So I hope all of you liked this, and as you can see, here's my before on the left, and on the right is the after. But if you have any questions, please let me know, and I know this was a little bit spastic, but hopefully my next one will be a little bit more put together. Bye.